reason I like the Southeast neighborhood is because I really like the type of houses that are here. The old-fashioned kind of house. And I like the 2 and 3 stories and the basement and just, you know, the old individual. They're all individual. Neither one of them, none of them are the same. And I originally moved into this neighborhood because of the house that I went to look at it, and I just immediately fell in love with it. And then I gradually started getting to know my neighbors.
I don't know, I think it's kind of a neat community because people are really friendly, and you can kind of sense some kind of neighborhood feeling. You know, like there's the local kinos, and every time you go into the kinos, the ladies know, they know your name, and they recognize you, and the ladies who've checked there have checked there for years. And
I like the neighborhood. I like the expression of the people, and I don't want to live in a rich residence anyway. I want to live with common people.
And that's the kind of neighborhood this is.
Yeah. I never was treated whiter in my life than now. I've been here in this neighborhood, and I lived around the vicinity for about 29 years.
It feels like an old neighborhood. I mean, it feels neighborhoody. And I mean, from that standpoint, the buildings have been here a long time, and I like to walk around and sort of sometimes think I'm in another century, another day, not century certainly, but certainly in another time. And like what we have out in front there, those rings, those metal rings, and that's where they used to tie the horses. And there's a sense of, this being a historical continuity of the neighborhood. I sort of feel that sometimes.
But I like the neighborhood as a welder and fit-ups person in a non-union shop. And I've been in the neighborhood for about 3 years.
What characterizes this neighborhood? Why do you like this neighborhood better than others?
Well, most of my friends live within a 6-block radius of where I'm living now. It's easily accessible to the grocery store and laundry and that kind of thing where I'm living right now.
There's Colonel Summers Park down there, and it's really a nice park, and you see all sorts of people there all the time. And there's softball games. There's all sorts of equipment and things for the kids to do, and it's patrolled by a young person there that sort of oversees things and takes care of there's a swimming pool there and a sandbox for all ages go there.
A lot of my friends that live way out, like in Gresham and stuff, I've told them about my park. Well, the neighborhood park. And they bring their kids down here one time, and their kids won't play at any other park. They want to come down to this one.
Has that been built since you've been here?
Yeah. Well, the new stuff, the wood stuff, that was built, I think, last year.
It was a very good district when my father bought that house over there in 1919. That's the one right there in the corner. Mm-hmm. And this was all going to be a park area down below. But then something went wrong, and it turned into a commercial area, and then from then on, the neighborhood went down.
Well, I think the industry coming in so close is spoiling it for residential. That, I have seen that change.
Do you think there's any way to stop that?
Well, if I could think of a good way, I'd try it.
What industry is coming in? Because I'm very new here.
Well, I don't really pay that much attention to it. I just know that little by little they're moving up, and now they're crept to 12th Street, 11th. There's a lot of businesses and so forth.
Well, first, it's getting a little trashy. I mean, the buildings are getting run down, and there doesn't seem to be, well, we have a garden down the street there, and there was a building behind it. Huge trees, some big, huge cherry trees with trunk like that. It was so gorgeous in the spring. It was always, they tore it down. This Westman, or whatever his name is, Weston and Company tore the whole house down, all the trees, and now they're going to put up one of these 2B slums. I mean, they're not slums now, they're probably expensive apartment buildings, but they're eventually going to be slums. And I'd prefer to see some of the older buildings being maintained.
Do you think anything commercial will happen in this area?
I'm not much of a forecaster for that. I really don't know the area that well. This is mostly residential. However, the property here is zoned industrial, which
And we were approached before we got started by people wanting to purchase the place for warehousing, to store things. So.
And what was your response?
Well, we just had other ideas. We wanted to fix them up to rent them out for apartments. So this is more long-term investment here.
The people who are in the apartments and the newer apartments especially, I would say that they spend very, very little time here because their apartments are small, they don't have any storage space, working space. It's mostly breakfast and sleeping space, bed and breakfast. For those people, it doesn't really have much to offer. And those are people who generally don't have kids, too, because new apartments are 1 and 2 bedroom and they're not family. And the city council says, well, we want to keep the families in here and stuff like that, but they're moving out of the city and out of the near and southeast like crazy. Between 1960 and 70, I think there was a 33% drop in families.
Than I ever was anywhere else. And probably because a lot of the people come through and they are just not the settling down type, and they have a sort of a more drifting attitude towards people and things, maybe.
Is this largely a rental neighborhood?
I think so. Well, this house is owned, and I think Stella owns hers. These people probably own theirs right immediately around us. Most of the people own, but then out a little farther. Of course, I don't know. I don't know the people that much, but I see, especially up that way.
There's an apartment right over there.
Lots of us own our own homes and have been here for years.
Mm-hmm.
But where the low rents are, it seems, I think you can tell it very easily because the houses aren't kept up. For instance, the one across the street is a mess. And I think if landlords cared anything about the property at all, they'd fix them up, clean them up.
People over here bringing their dogs over here, cruding all over the yard, man. Don't like that too much, because, you know, I walk out of the house, I got a path right here, I got to walk down.
What would you like to see happen to this area?
I'd like to see it turned into a park. Like flatten out the area, you know, put some grass in it, and maybe put 2 picnic tables in it or something like that. I think it'd look nice.
I think a lot of it will be, a lot of houses will be torn down and making room for condominiums, and like take this lot on the corner. I imagine that'll be sold.
What would you like to see happen to it?
Oh, it could be made into a park, you know, or some kind of a child care park.
Seen anything happen in your neighborhood today that we could write down as news? What happened?
A bunch of girls got drenched, and boys.
Where was this? Where did this happen?
At St. Francis, in that pool. And we had a water fight, man.
Who helped make the pool?
Everybody in the community.
Yeah?
St. Francis people. Everybody helped.
Did you help some?
Yeah, I helped a little, not much.
What? Oh my goodness, let's get this. Let's get this.
I think that one of the things that you have to realize in this neighborhood is that there are a lot of people who are living alternate lifestyles. And it's probably one of the few places in the city where they're accepted and can do that. It's very important, for instance, in the issue of the definition of a family, that the city council understand that a family is bigger than most people have realized before, and that they allow those things to happen. The same thing is true of halfway houses and group homes for people. Unless we have ways in the city for these to happen, then people are lost. And in our neighborhood, they can happen.
Can be that, like we have an area where we have 4 houses together, and we have about a quarter acre in garden between the 4 houses, and it just, you know, it's like right in the middle of the city, and we're able to do that. And
Where do you live?
19th and Alder.
Is there any way you could characterize that area that you're in?
Run down, but open to being used in, you know, in ways that people with not very much money can still do a lot of things, you know.
like to eat fresh vegetable, and because they're better than the one you buy in the store, because the one from the store doesn't have any flavor.
You know, I'm going to have some dry Bermuda onions for myself and my family. Of course, this is all done together. We never ever work alone. My wife and my son, we all work together. And we feel that it's much more fun to have a garden than it is to have a wee lawn.
Well, I would say this neighborhood is going to be always the way it was. I mean, there's been a lot of people moved in here, I mean, who, I don't know how to explain it. It's always been the same as far as I remember, like I told you. You're supposed to be looking at me, you know. Oh, I see. Oh, I see. No, but I say that this neighborhood has practically always been the same. Now, of course, all these big homes, well, big homes back in the 20s and 30s were a thing, but now you can find 5 and 6 families moving into big homes now, and it attracts the younger crowd.
The city basically is interested in following a traditional planning approach, which is when you have which is very simple. The higher densities are near the center, and they slowly diminish toward the outside. There's nothing magical about it. The idea is that you begin to build in it's almost sort of a design kind of vision. How to explain it? So it's a notion, it's a physical dimension of the city is that somehow the densities are pyramid to the top and diminish as you're going out, and that's the way. And that's primary reflection of the way cities have grown. Smaller lots, they don't meet a code, the lots are too small. The structures may be inadequate in terms of present day code. People who live there don't have the means to maintain them or holding on to them for speculative purposes. Nobody care what happens to the structures. I'm sure there's a lot of that going on. And at the same time, the city says, here's an area of transiency, it's changing. Well, which direction should it go? And the way it should go is generally to a higher density, which results in zoning areas like Buckland, areas for higher density development. Duplexes, triplexes, what I would call motel type apartment buildings, cracker box kinds of things. And the result of that is that tends to aid the speculation that's already started. It doesn't tend to dampen it at all. And so what you have is a good market for investment. And as I go back to my point about Burnside on a smaller scale, investment is good because it generates tax base. And you also have, in Southeast Portland, it's characterized, I think, others can respond, by